Welcome to episode 11 of the Leading Complexity video podcast. This is where we explore the art of leading organization in today's complex, hyper-competitive landscape. In each episode, we will explore cutting-edge strategies with some of the foremost thinkers in leadership. Join us and discover how to make your organization thrive and lead in a constantly evolving world. My name is Tomas Björkholm, and with me I have Michael Göthe.
In this episode, we will listen to an exciting conversation we had with our colleague Henrik Kniberg at CRISP.
How do you know Henrik, by the way?
I just realized I have been basically exactly 10 years at CRISP, and I knew him a couple of years before that, started to collaborate with him. So yeah, a long time friend and colleague. And you?
I actually know him since early in the 90s because we were studying together at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. But I think for most viewers, that is not of the interest. What's interesting more is the books and the videos he's very famous for. For instance, we have Scrum and XP from the trenches, Lean from the trenches. And we also have videos like Product Ownership in a Nutshell. We have the videos about the Spotify model, and lately he also created this video about generative AI in a nutshell, and already after a couple of months he had more than 2 million views on that one. Fortunately, we had the possibility to have a discussion with him, and I think it's time to look at the interview. Hey, hello, Henrik.
Hello.
It's so nice to be in contact with you, and I'm also very happy to have you in the program Leading Complexity.
Yes, this will be great.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm sitting outside enjoying the Swedish summer, or what's left of it.
That sounds really great. So for those that don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
I would probably say, hi, I'm Henrik. I'm a Swedish dude who kind of works as a coach and a software developer. I worked at Spotify and Lego and Mojang and had a mix of roles, but overall just trying to help companies improve. And the past few years I've been doing working as a Minecraft developer. Yeah, I like to jam, play music, and I have a family with 4 kids. And yeah, I guess that's me in a nutshell.
I'm always so surprised or impressed of how much you are able to do, given that you have a big family, you are doing a lot of things, and I'm impressed. But never mind that. So this program will be about leading complexity. And why do you think that leaders should care about complexity?
Well, people are complex and groups of people are even more complex. And if you happen to be a leader, then you're probably leading people. So complexity is in your face, whether you like it or not. And if you understand complexity, then you're probably going to be a better leader. And if you work in a context doing product development, especially innovative product development, then that just adds another layer of complexity on top of it. So yeah, complexity is your friend. Learn to deal with it, and you'll probably be a happier and more effective leader.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And what do you think are the biggest challenges when for leaders facing complexity?
It's hard to pick one like that would be the biggest, but I could say one that I think is a big one. I would call it our addiction to predictability. It's just so comfortable to be able to pretend that oh, everything is going to be the way it is, and we can predict and make a plan and just follow the plan and hold people accountable to the plan. But in a complex world, that really doesn't work. So it's a big challenge to get over that, both as a leader, but also, to help the people you're leading to get over that, and instead see it like we have a goal and we have a plan, but the goal is what matters, and the plan can change, and you as a team are empowered to change the plan when needed. That's just a whole different mindset, and it's hard sometimes to get used to.
Yeah, I think that is a really good message to the leaders. Do you have any other good key messages for leaders that are navigating in complexity?
I guess maybe be a bit courageous there and be willing to let go of control. Because if in a world of complexity, it can't be you making all the decisions. It'll be too slow. It won't be good decisions. So you need to trust people to make decisions, sometimes even without informing you, and that's scary. But it's something you kind of need to get over. And I guess also trading, maybe, you know, traditional forms of control, like in a non-complex environment, trading that with other types of control. And in a complex environment, control is via feedback loops. So if you create an environment where there's feedback loops everywhere, where teams are in contact with the customers they're working for, etc., then you're basically enabling your whole organization to have control, and then you as an individual can let go of some control. But it is a bit scary because, yeah, if you let go of control, then stuff happens without your control, and that can sometimes feel scary.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say that we're talking about losing control, but or having another sort of control?
Yeah.
What about just having project managers saying everything is green? Is that enough?
Well, sometimes things aren't green. And I think a big part of dealing with complexity is adapting to when you run into trouble. So you ideally want teams that are super open and transparent with, oh no, we're in trouble. We're not going to succeed if we continue doing this. So we need help. And by being super transparent with that, then they're going to be more likely to ask for help, and other teams are going to be more likely to give help.
Yeah. I really like that. That is like those watermelon figures, you know. Then when people are saying it's green, but actually it's red, so it's like a watermelon. It's green on the outside and red on the inside.
Yeah, and then that's also really hard because, I mean, in some organizations, if someone's shows a red flag or a red traffic light, then they kind of get, they're given a hard time for it. They're like, oh well, what did you do wrong, kind of thing, or how could this happen? So there needs to be a mindset of, oh, you're in trouble. How can we help? And what can we learn from it so it doesn't happen next time? Because and that also at a meta level, if you have an organization that is, always promoting predictability and always promoting, like, we want green lights all the time, what that does is makes people scared and conservative. So nobody's going to take risks. Nobody's going to try some new cool product. They're just going to do things they've always done. They're going to work the way they've always done. So you don't get continuous improvement. You don't get innovation. And that basically means that whenever a competitor shows up, then you're in trouble.
So true, so true.
Yes, I'll be talking a little bit about the thing that people call the Spotify model, and kind of a little bit about the background behind how did this thing become so viral, so well known, and what are some of the important messages behind it that sometimes get lost in all the hype. So yeah, just some personal reflection around that. And hopefully what people take away from it is a little bit of a deeper understanding of like, what are some things we can learn from that story, from not only the company Spotify, but other companies that have similar cases, and how can we avoid falling into the trap of being overly religious about things. That particular case, it wasn't even intended to be a framework or a model. It was just a case study, but there are lessons in there. And I want to kind of emphasize what were the original lessons that sometimes get lost in all the rah-rah.
That sounds very interesting. So thank you very much for this interview, and keep enjoying the Swedish summer, and have a great time, and see you in September.
Yes, see you there. All right, bye-bye.
Great.
Henrik talks about the addiction to predictability.
Yeah.
Do you also recognize that? What does he mean with it?
Well, I think it means that people in general love plans. We love plans, and we love it so much that we believe that the plan is important in itself. And it also makes people incentivize others to following the plan. And the problem is in complexity. Plans are not the thing, because in complexity, things are changing all the time. So we need to be kind of used to be working in the uncertainty. And here, the certainty of a plan is not really useful. Instead, probability theory is more what we can do something about. So being more focusing on the right things, what is most important, and then being very fast as moving to something else, it's much better than always going for the plan.
Yeah, we're used to having a traditional kind of control where we really are kind of in details and actually controlling things. But as things are more complex, we need another type of control. And I think Henrik mentions with tight feedback loops and also teams that interact with customers, you actually have some control because you're adopting and you're learning and working together with the customer. So it's another type of control.
Yeah.
So if it's important then to adjust quickly, how do we speed up that ability to change direction and focus? And also, often we hear that people are reluctant to change, but in Agile, we want to embrace change. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, there are two problems. It's a speed and it's a reluctance. And the problem in both cases is where the decisions are made. A lot of times it's made quite far away from where the actual work is done. And that gives those two problems, because if the decisions are done somewhere else and then it's just communicated like, okay, now we do it like this instead, people will be very reluctant and probably working against it. But instead, if they were more empowered, as Henrik mentioned, they would feel more they are responsible for the result. And when they, doing the work, are noticing that we are working on the wrong thing, we need to do some changes here, go away from specifications and plans and all that, since they come up with it themselves, they will be much, much less reluctant and more engaged in also running the changes. And it will also be much faster, because it's not like you've discovered something and then you need to send the information or the question to someone else, and that someone else, probably sitting in steering committee or something, is taking the decision and sending back the decision, the result of that discussion. Now you can take that decision immediately, so you can have the decision made in a couple of minutes, maybe. Yes, talk to someone else and see if they have the same idea what to do in this situation, and quickly we can have a new answer of how to go forward. And since we are empowered, we can just do that so quickly and more engaging, I would say.
Yeah, so people, I don't want to be changed like from externally, but if you involve them and they are participating, and then it becomes part of their work.
Yeah, definitely. Big difference between being changed and being in command of changing.
Yeah.
I was thinking of another thing that Henrik is mentioning, and that is about the red flags. Can you mention something about that?
Yeah. So in projects, often if there's not really openness or encouraging people to share, there could be red flags that doesn't show up. So there's no possible way to act on them, and people kind of hide the actual problems, so they don't surface. Instead, what you want is when there's a problem, so you want to kind of embrace it and kind of see how can we support you, how can we help you in that. I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And also you had a nice metaphor you brought up there, the watermelon metaphor. Can you explain it?
Yes, I think it's really showing the problem that we have when we have this reporting structure, and everyone just want to, you become the hero if you say it's green, and you will become the opposite of hero when you say it's red. So what happens is that a lot of projects and teams, they are green on the outside, just like the watermelon, but also as a watermelon, red on the inside. So we report everything is fine, and underneath it's just a chicken race trying to kind of, are we able to fix it before the S hits a fan? And most of the times we can't. And I've seen even situations where everyone knows that we are so behind schedule and everything, but everyone is hoping someone else would be the first that needs to tell the management about it. And then when the management says, oh no, we are behind because of this team, okay, you get another month, and everyone is like, whew, we saved. Someone else had to take the blame.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story with Alan Mulally when he was the CEO of Ford, and they were going bankrupt in 2008, I think, and they were losing $17 billion. and all
Close to bankruptcy.
Yeah, close to bankruptcy.
Yeah.
They were saved, I think, but they were heading for bankruptcy, and all the area managers were reporting green. In every meeting reporting green, and said, something must go wrong. We're losing $17 billion. And eventually someone started to share, well, okay, it's red here. And they didn't have that psychological safety. They were expected that person to be fired. But when he showed that it was appreciated to share your problems, eventually everyone started to be transparent. And he said that was what saved Ford.
Yeah. And when we met Amy Edmondson and talked about this situation, she also mentioned that a lot of people going on her classes, especially CEOs, this is their biggest fear, that whatever people are reporting is not the truth.
Yeah.
And as Alan Mulally in his situation, my guess is that, I mean, if we're doing $17 billion losing $17 billion and everything is green, I mean, that is a catastrophe, because then we should not be a company. If we're doing everything right, if everything goes well, and we're still losing this much money, then we're totally doomed.
Yeah, so that means you cannot really lead or manage if you don't have that information, or if it's not transparent or open.
Yeah, like steering, but you're blind.
Yeah. Another thing is Henrik talked about the Spotify model.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because I was at Spotify during that time, just before he announced the videos, and it's so interesting to see how the videos made a difference in the world. A lot of companies suddenly were like, "Oh, you've been at Spotify, come here and talk about it." Quite interesting. And what is extra interesting was that it was not really meant to be like a model, and Henrik is mentioning that, and the thing with Spotify was not what you can see. Like, they called the teams a squad, and they called departments a tribe, etc. The thing with Spotify was that they were always challenging the status quo, and they were trying to figure out there need to be a better way of doing things. So they were experimenting a lot, and they didn't leave things to chance. They were always trying to be explicit, which we talked about earlier in this podcast. And the also interesting is that the reason why they didn't talk about departments and teams, instead talked about tribes and squads, was that they didn't want people to start working there thinking, oh, okay, this is a team, and we know how teams works. And if you remember this, the episode together with Woody Soil, most teams don't work as teams. So by giving it another name, it becomes like, oh, you have squads. What is squads? How do they work? And now you can tell them that, okay, squads works like this, which is far from what they have probably been doing in teams before.
Yeah, so I think the whole idea of coming up with those tribe names, chapters, squads, etc., the idea was to actually define what it meant for them. But
yeah,
the interesting, funny thing is that became like a model, and organizations started to copy that, and you wanted to implement tribes and squads in their area.
I guess we are probably both in implementation where, oh, we are now very agile because we have renamed all the teams to squads, and the departments are now tribes, and now we're agile. It's like,
so in complexity, you really cannot copy best practices, because just implementing the context, everything is different. So yeah, it's important you can learn from it, you can adopt it, but it also requires that you understand the purpose, why it worked, and the context where it worked, and then you can learn from that and make something that fits your organization, and then experiment with it. So it's not really to copy.
No, or at least you can be inspired by it.
Yeah.
But everything is context, and if you will not have the same context as anyone else, so you have to figure it out yourself, kind of. But of course, it helps a little bit to piggyback on what others have already done.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the highlights from the video. One thing that stuck with me was this kind of focusing or being addicted to the predictability. And that is kind of a pitfall to kind of have people not take risks, not take initiatives, be conservative. I think it will lose creativity and innovation. So as Henrik talked about, the goal, the importance is the goal and adopting to it, not just predictability, not mostly often.
Yeah, and that was very close to my first highlight, which is about letting go of control, or actually getting another kind of control. In the more traditional way of running a company, it's you get control by making sure that all information goes through you. So you command people and they report back to you, and that's a way of making sure that you have control. The problem is that a lot of cases that is you are not in control because a lot of things are happening under radar. In a more complex environment, control is better to come together with the quick feedback loops and the transparency that gives, because that will really give you the understanding of what is really happening.
Yeah, and as Henrik says, as a leader, you work with people, so people are complex, so you have complexity in your face. So learn to live with it and embrace it.
Mm.
And also, I think this importance of employees work or teams working in direct contact with the customer. So if they do that, basically there are some control because they can quickly adapt to what's actually needed, and rather than just following plans.
Yeah, or observing how people are working with your product or service, that is gives much more understanding instead of just hoping. My last highlight is actually something we already talked about, but I think it's worth emphasizing this, that the Spotify model was not supposed to be a model or a framework. It was just to be a case study, and I think that's how we should use it as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap up for today. We're curious about your reflections as well, so please share it in the comments. And if you want to learn more about the Spotify model, Henrik's work, you can get access to the recorded masterclasses from earlier years in the Leading Complexity program, and that is if you're signing up for this year. And the great news is that you will also get to know about Henrik's latest work. That's around generative AI, and he will have a masterclass November 21st this year. So by joining the program, you will get to be updated with his latest thinking. So his session will be, he will teach us a transformation guide to AI. So go to leadingcomplexity.com and get your tickets.
And I have seen Henrik in action talking about AI, and it's super interesting. I felt if I was a CEO of a company, I would just say, I want that. I don't know what it is, but I want it, and I want it now. So sign up and you get to know more.
Henrik is a fantastic presenter and teacher. So
Yes.
yeah, don't miss it. Okay, see you next week. Thank you everyone who have joined us.
Thank you.